Deep within the earth, an ancient entrance waits. A place overflowing with monsters and deadly traps. This brutal, unforgiving world is known as the Labyrinth. Those who dare to enter are divided into 4 types. First, the warrior, who stands on the front line. Second, the priest, who supports with divine power. Third is the wizard, the core of any party. And the fourth, those with no abilities. Basically, bait. The creature's gaze locks onto them, and the party freezes. The warrior is nominated to be the first sacrifice. Just as the warrior is about to be sacrificed, a new voice cuts through the tension. The party is stunned. Guides are meant to be navigators, not fighters. But he walks forward anyway, leaving his confused party members behind. The red-haired man smirks, accusing the priestess of just being a coward. They watch from a distance, curious to see this supposed non-combatant's plan. The system is clear. Guides are at the very bottom of the combat hierarchy. But this young man clenches his fist, driven by a purpose we don't yet see. His party watches, confused, as he fiddles with his only source of light. He reveals his strategy, exploiting the monster's nature as a creature of the dark, and with a click, he plunges the entire cavern into absolute blackness. In the suffocating darkness, a single red eye burns with fury. The beast thrashes wildly, its claws striking the empty ground. It locks onto the scent of its prey and begins its charge. The massive labyrinth rat barrels towards the lone guide, but he remains perfectly still, calculating the perfect distance. Just as the monster is about to strike, he makes his move. He reignites the lantern, unleashing a blinding flash of light. The sudden glare hits its eyes, and apparently, it's not a mourning person. The monster shrieks in agony, completely disoriented by the pain. And with the beast stunned, the so-called bait draws his blade. With a swift motion, he drives the blade into its neck. The small dagger sinks deep, a testament to his resolve. A final, silent scream echoes in the monster's eye. The colossal creature crashes lifelessly to the cavern floor. He takes a breath, confirming his impossible victory. His party is completely stunned by the guide's hidden talent. He shrugs it off, claiming any adventurer could handle it. But as he reflects on his discovery, a new threat appears. The priestess screams a desperate warning, her voice filled with terror. Because it turns out the first rat brought its much, much angrier parent. He turns, his eyes widening at the new colossal threat. But before it can strike, a brilliant flash erupts from behind him. The massive beast is stopped dead in its tracks, roaring in frustration. Dust grits his teeth, bracing against the sheer force of the attack. The monster is violently thrown back by an unseen power. A new voice cuts in, scolding him for his recklessness. A young woman appears, her hand glowing with healing energy. This is Reina, his childhood friend, surprised by how strong he's become. She casually asks for a thank you for saving his life. You know, as friends do. Dust reluctantly admits she got him out of a tight spot. Reina watches him, her expression a mix of concern and suspicion. Dust sits alone, quietly lost in his own thoughts. She breaks the silence, demanding his attention. She can tell something is wrong and asks him to explain himself. It never made sense for someone who dreamed of being a hero to become a guide. The question hits a nerve, his hand clenching at the memory. He admits that his childhood dream was shattered by a past event. His mind is thrown back to a day of pure, unadulterated terror. He remembers the sight of 3 deadly, piercing claws, and the nightmarish, bird-like beast that wielded them. He explains that the day his village was attacked, he learned a harsh truth. He was powerless to save anyone, so he abandoned his dream and ran. Reina listens, the pieces of his past finally clicking into place. But she questions his logic, asking why he'd fight alone if he knew he was weak. Dust admits he has a new purpose, a goal he must achieve, and to do that, he can no longer afford to be the weak person he once was. A knowing smile crosses Reina's face. She understands his resolve. With the therapy session over, she reminds him they have a job to do. Their current quest is to find a mandrake, a common task for rookies. Dust agrees, remembering the party they ditched to have this chat. Dust glances down a dark, foreboding passage. He senses something deeper in the labyrinth, but dismisses it as his imagination. But from the darkness, a faint whisper seems to call out. After regrouping, the party decides to split up to cover more ground. Dust and Reina take one path, while the warrior and priestess take another. We follow the warrior and priestess into a grand, pillared hall. The warrior tries to take charge, suggesting they check the other way. But the priestess calls him out. He's so distracted he's leading them in circles. He blames his distraction on Dust, feeling his pride as a warrior has been wounded. Their argument is cut short when the priestess spots a treasure chest. The warrior's greed gets the better of him, declaring they can't ignore it. The priestess, Being the only one with common sense suggests it's a trap. He snaps, his pride wounded, insisting he can handle this alone. He ignores her concerns about the mandrake, his eyes fixed on the potential loot. Back with our duo, Dust is carefully inspecting a small sprout. He explains he's tracking the mandrake by the soil's scent, a very guide-like skill. A thoughtful expression crosses Reina's face as an idea begins to form. Before he can react, a wisp of magic drifts towards him. The strange energy flows past his hand, glowing with a soft light. Reina explains it's a sensory spell, offering to boost his tracking ability. Dust thanks her for the magical assist. With his senses amplified, he leads them down a gnarled passage. Their target, the mandrake, sits waiting for them. Reina collects the prize, but Dust is staring off into the darkness. His enhanced smell has detected something else. A familiar, disgusting scent. Their mission is complete, but he can't shake this feeling of dread. Reina observes him, realizing how much he's changed. She tries to distract him with news from the outside world. She brings up a bandit hunt led by a rumored hero, and a suspicious merchant disappearance near the labyrinth. She theorizes that the bandits might be using the labyrinth as a hideout. The thought seems to put him on edge, his hand clenching instinctively. She muses it's a perfect criminal hideout, then notices his sudden change in demeanor. She playfully asks if her speculation has managed to scare him. She teases him, offering protection, but he's focused on something else entirely. He ignores her completely, describing a putrid odor that's caught his attention. Reina is instantly offended, thinking he's insulting her personal hygiene. She frantically defends her morning routine, but Dust cuts her off. His expression is deadly serious. It's the unmistakable smell of a corpse. He knows exactly where it's coming from, and the scent is growing stronger. He follows the scent, leading them deeper into the darkness. They reach a precipice, peering into the abyss below. Below them lies a horrifying pit, filled with the bodies of the dead. Elsewhere, the warrior's greed takes over completely. The priestess grows impatient, reminding him of their actual mission. He insists he's this close to getting rich, or dying. Probably dying. But she senses a shift in the air, a feeling of unease. Her intuition screams that they are in terrible danger. Her attention is drawn to a dark, ominous doorway. With a sudden click, the chest springs open, startling them both. He reaches into the chest, ignoring her desperate pleas. The priestess shouts, certain his recklessness will be their end. But as the lid opens, the hall remains silent. The warrior laughs, his arrogance swelling with his apparent success. He gives a sweaty thumbs up, but she's clearly not impressed. Her gaze drifts upwards, the grand hall feeling more like a tomb. She spots another dark passage, wondering what lies within its depths. The warrior, already bored with the chest, heads in to explore. He calls out from the darkness, having already found more potential treasure. But she calls out his name, Simon, hearing a faint noise he's failed to notice. She calls out his name, her voice laced with concern. She asks if he heard the sound, but he's completely unresponsive. He finally speaks, but his question isn't directed at her. A hand suddenly rests on his shoulder from the darkness. An arrow finds its mark, and Simon collapses in shock. Elsewhere, Dust is sprinting through the labyrinth's passages. He realizes splitting up was a terrible, terrible mistake. He races to save them, but he may already be too late. The priestess panics, realizing this wasn't a trap but an assassin. Before she can act, a hand clamps over her mouth, silencing her scream. Her eyes widen in terror, reflecting the face of her attacker. A vicious blow sends her reeling backwards. The assassin pins her down, his face a mask of pure malice. The force of the impact cracks the stone beneath her. He catches her wrist, disarming her with contemptuous ease. His hand closes around her throat, silencing her for good. The killer coldly remarks on her unfortunate timing. Apparently, she's interrupting his grand exit from the labyrinth. He raises his fist, ready to end her life without a second thought. But a new hand suddenly intercepts his, stopping the attack cold. The assassin's arm is caught in an unbreakable grip. The priestess can only watch, her life hanging in the balance. Dust twists the man's arm, forcing him away from his target. A cold fury burns in Dust's eyes. He's not playing games. The killer is stunned, unable to comprehend this sudden interference. With a surge of strength, he flips the much larger man over his shoulder. The assassin hits the stone floor with a bone-jarring impact. He grits his teeth, his pride shattered by the so-called bait. Before he can recover, Dust locks him in a brutal chokehold. The killer struggles, his own life now slipping through his fingers. The assassin claws desperately at Dust's arms, but the grip is iron. Dust roars, calling out Reina's name for the assist. From above, Reina begins to channel her magic. She unleashes a concentrated blast of pure energy. The magic bullet streaks down towards the helpless target. The killer realizes he's been completely outplayed. The attack finds its mark with a brutal final impact. With the threat neutralized, the bait is now playing medic. He reveals another hidden skill, using divine power to stop the bleeding. He explains they were both hit with poison and need to escape immediately. Reina suggests a plan, but the assassin scoffs at their chances. He warns them his comrades are coming, and they're hopelessly outmatched. His offer of a quick death is met with a swift smack to the head. Dust realizes the man is just trying to stall and intimidate them. He spots the assassin's loot, confirming Reina's theory about the bandits. The weight of the situation hits him. This is bigger than he thought. And to make matters worse, he can hear voices approaching in the distance. He's trapped, with no easy way out of this mess. So much for a simple rookie quest. He knows he can't abandon the warrior and priestess to die, but his old doubts resurface, questioning if a guide can save anyone. The priestess's plea cuts through his panic, but Dust is lost in his own head. She begs him to save them, her hope resting on the so-called bait. He covers her eyes, a familiar, haunting voice echoing in his mind. His memory throws him back to a dark room and his mother's chilling words. But the comfort he remembers is replaced by a cold, mocking laugh. The voice reminds him of that fateful day the monsters came for his village. She accuses him of turning away from someone who was crying for help. He tries to deny it, but the memory is a poison he can't escape. She tells him the harsh truth. He's weak, and heroes have to be strong. Her final advice was to simply turn away and see nothing at all. He accepts his mother's cruel words, believing he's too weak to save anyone. The memory consumes him, a small boy convinced he could never be a hero. But a voice from the present shatters the illusion, screaming his real name, Cariel. It's Reina, her voice cutting through the darkness, demanding he snap out of it. And just like that, the spell is broken. He knows he can't afford to dwell on the past. He apologizes to Reina, his focus shifting from his trauma to their survival. His mind races, analyzing every detail of their impossible situation. They're facing trained killers with a party that's not exactly an A-team. But then it hits him. Their greatest weakness might just be their greatest weapon. Reina watches, confused, as a dangerous new plan begins to form in his eyes. Dust takes command, telling them to follow his every word. Meanwhile, the approaching footsteps grow louder and closer. The bandits are on the move, led by a hooded figure. They whisper about the hero hunting them, the one who wounded their boss. But as they round a corner, their escape is cut short. Because Dust is standing there, blocking their only path forward. The bandits scoff, wondering if this kid is the hero they've heard about. Then they notice the small pouch clutched tightly in his hand. One of them realizes he's holding their stolen gems and immediately calls for his head. The leader, however, is more pragmatic, wanting to avoid any unnecessary trouble. The leader extends a hand, offering a simple, deceptive deal. But Dust knows better. These aren't negotiators, they're killers. Hidden in the shadows, Reina prepares for the inevitable fight. Dust's eyes narrow, his decision made in an instant. He tightens his grip on the pouch, the bait for his trap. And with a flick of his wrist, he tosses the treasure towards them. The leader smirks, believing the kid has wisely chosen to surrender. But their policy is simple and brutal. No witnesses allowed. The pouch suddenly erupts in a blinding, fiery explosion. The bandits' shock is absolute. Dust's plan was to strike first. The explosion rips through the narrow passage, engulfing the bandits. Dust braces himself, praying this one attack is enough to end it. The cavern fills with a thick cloud of smoke and debris. But through the haze, a hand reaches out, completely unscathed. The leader emerges, enraged by Dust's little trick. He promises our boy a very, very painful end. Dust realizes Plan A has officially gone up in smoke and moves to the next. Without a moment's hesitation, he pivots on his heel. He leads them on a desperate chase deeper into the labyrinth. But the explosion wasn't a total failure. He's weakened them. The leader realizes Dust has backup hidden somewhere nearby. And right on cue, a beam of light descends from the ceiling. But it's not aimed at the bandits, it's aimed right at Dust. The pressure is immense, his legs threatening to give out. He pushes forward, his eyes fixed on a single point of light ahead. One of the bandits, a mountain of a man, closes the distance. He lands a devastating blow, sending Dust reeling from the impact. But Dust grits his teeth, determined to endure just a little longer. The leader screams at his men, frustrated by their target's resilience. He decides to end this himself, conjuring a ball of fire in his palm. Dust knows he's trapped, unable to dodge the fiery attack. He's pinned down, completely at the bandit leader's mercy. But the leader's attention is suddenly drawn to a new threat. He realizes with a jolt that he's let his guard down. because Reina's spell wasn't aimed at Dust or even the bandits. The bandit leader braces for an impact that never comes. He's absolutely furious, declaring he's done playing games. But as the dust settles, he realizes the attack flew right past him. The magic wasn't an attack, but a tool for something else entirely. Reina's spell has triggered a cave-in, sealing the passage behind them. The bandit leader smirks, finally putting the pieces together. He mocks Dust, assuming this was just a noble, last-ditch sacrifice. He boasts that the wall of rock is a minor inconvenience at best. But he'll happily take the time to deal with Dust first. You know, for fun. Dust, however, catches his breath with a confident grin of his own. We flash back to the strategy session as Dust lays out the plan for Reina, but she immediately calls him out on the final step, leaving him behind. He assures her that was just a misdirection. The real plan was something else. He asks her about the sensory amplification spell she used to help him track, and then he asks if that same magic can be used to block out sound completely. The bandit leader scoffs, but Dust reveals the ace up his sleeve, the mandrake. He begins to pull the infamous screaming plant from the ground. The bandits are completely baffled. Weaponized gardening isn't in their playbook. They know its shriek causes hallucinations, nausea, and disorientation. The leader realizes the kid is serious and starts to panic. He screams for his men to cover their ears, knowing the sound can be fatal. But Dust is prepared, his ears shielded by Reina's sound-dampening spell. With a final, desperate heave, he rips the mandrake free. The creature lets out a silent but incredibly powerful shriek. The bandits are hit with the full force of the sonic assault, their minds shattering. But elsewhere, a heavy armored boot steps onto the scene. A mysterious knight in white armor senses something is amiss. He confirms a foul scent is coming from the labyrinth's entrance. Back inside, the mandrake's psychic assault continues to rage. The bandit leader curses Dust for the cheap trick, assuming he's already dead. But when he looks, our boy has vanished into thin air. He screams for his men to stay on guard, but it's already too late. A fist connects with his jaw, a brutal lesson in situational awareness. Because Dust knows the mandrake is weakest against a magic user. With the leader stunned, he orders his team to finish the job. The leader struggles to his feet, his head still ringing from the blow. But Dust gives him no time to recover, stomping him back down. He follows up with a vicious knee, driving the air from his lungs. The so-called leader is left twitching on the cavern floor. But Dust isn't finished. He's still looking for the other bandit. He finds him, using the man's own shoulder as a launch pad. He springs forward, putting all his weight into the attack. A devastating elbow connects with the giant's temple. The massive brute is sent stumbling, completely disoriented. He can't believe this kid is single-handedly taking them apart. The giant bandit swings down with a furious haymaker. But Dust meets the blow head-on, blocking with his forearm. The bandit's eyes widen in disbelief at the guide's raw strength. Dust's gaze is cold and focused, not giving a single inch. With a sickening crack, the bandit's arm shatters from the impact. Blood splatters across the cavern floor, a testament to the brutal counter. A wild, almost unhinged grin spreads across Dust's face. He twists the broken limb, using the man's own pain against him. The giant can only grit his teeth, trapped in pure agony. Dust uses the momentum to throw him, locking him in a submission. The giant bandit struggles, his breath stolen by Dust's chokehold. His eyes widen in a silent, desperate scream for air. With a final twitch, his hand falls limp against the stone. And with that, the last of the bandits is down for the count. The party retreats, Dust admitting their plan almost failed. Reina smugly reminds him he couldn't have done it without her. You know, for moral support. Dust agrees, acknowledging her magic was the key to their success. He sincerely thanks her for trusting such a reckless strategy. Flustered, she admits he looked like a real hero back there. Her words strike a chord and a faint smile touches his lips. Dust suggests a much-needed catch-up with Reina once they're safe. She agrees, but her attention is suddenly caught by something ahead. A brilliant light floods the passage. It's the way out of the labyrinth. But Dust, still carrying the wounded warrior, senses something is wrong. A hulking silhouette stands silhouetted against the light of the exit. The figure's face is hidden, but its predatory grin is unmistakable. A jolt of pure terror runs through Dust as he recognizes the threat. He slams on the brakes, stopping their escape dead in its tracks. He screams for Reina, realizing the exit is a far greater danger. His eyes widen as he sees a projectile hurtling straight for them. With no time to think, Dust throws up his arm to block. He shields Reina, taking the full force of the magical blast. She can only watch in horror as her friend is engulfed in light. The mana shell detonates with catastrophic force. The entire passage is consumed by the violent explosion. A pained gasp escapes Dust's lips as the shockwave hits. He's thrown back, battered, but still in one piece. Mostly. He realizes the attack was a mana shell, likely from the bandit leader, but his first thought is for Reina, who used her magic to save him. He forces himself to move, knowing he has to get back on his feet. Dust grits his teeth, fighting to stay conscious through the pain. A raw scream is torn from his throat as the agony intensifies. The bandit leader looks back, confused by who he just attacked. He scoffs, dismissing the guide as a waste of a powerful spell. Dust struggles to speak, trying to stop the man from hunting Reina. He pleads with his eyes, begging the killer not to just walk away. But the villain turns his back, clearly not one for post-fight banter. As his vision fades, his only thought is of saving his friend. His mind floods with doubt, questioning if he was ever strong enough. He wonders if this desperate need to save others is a curse from birth. He questions if he's driven by a simple need for praise, or maybe it was just a child's admiration for heroes and stories. He admits to himself that he's lost, his true motive's a mystery. His mind drifts back to a time when he was just a broken, hopeless boy. But a new question cuts through the darkness. Does he need a reason to help? He remembers Reina's voice, reminding him he's always been a protector. She knew his dream wasn't for glory, but simply to save others. The memory is clear, but in the present, it feels like a lifetime ago. His old insecurities return, convinced a guide can never be strong enough. He even recalls a time when he could joke about his talent, a confidence now long gone. He remembers the harsh lesson he learned as a child. He recalls training relentlessly, driven by that one single truth. But in the end, all his effort felt like a complete failure. He told Reina he was giving up, accepting his own weakness, but she refused to let him wallow in his despair. He demanded to know why she still believed in him, and her answer was simple, direct, and undeniable. She told him his own actions were all the proof she needed. The memory fades, and her words echo in the present moment. Because even now, broken and bleeding, he's still protecting her. The bandit leader looms over him, demanding to know what he means. Dust tries to explain that he already knows the man's secret. But the leader isn't interested in a chat. He launches a vicious kick, aiming to silence Dust for good. Dust throws up a desperate block, absorbing the heavy impact. He points, trying to get the man to see what he's already noticed. The leader scoffs, admitting they're short on time. He mocks Dust, telling him he can't even get to his feet. He turns his back, telling our boy to stay down and know his place. Because what Dust already knew was that the leader is bleeding out. His eyes clear, his doubts washed away by Reina's unwavering faith. And in that moment, his purpose becomes crystal clear. But the bandit leader has already found his next target. He grabs Reina, declaring that mages must be dealt with permanently. A vicious blow sends her crashing to the stone floor. She lies motionless, her fate now in the killer's hands. The leader turns, confused by a voice he thought was silenced. But even now, Reina's last thought is of Cariel. The villain smirks, assuming Dust is begging for mercy. You know, classic bad guy stuff. He takes a step forward, ready to end this once and for all. The leader promises to end this with a single final blow, but Dust meets the attack head-on, absorbing the full impact. The bandit is stunned by the guide's sheer audacity. He calls Dust insane for taking the punch so willingly, but Dust's fist is already clenched for the perfect counter. He drives his knuckles right into the leader's existing wound. The bandit stumbles back, the targeted blow taking its toll. He clutches his side, realizing Dust just hit him where it hurts. Literally. Furious, he accuses Dust of begging for his own demise. With a cruel smile, he promises to grant that very wish. The leader breaks into a wild, mocking laugh. He taunts Dust for his resilience, calling him a weed. But Dust has found a new clarity, free from all excuses. He's no longer driven by a dream, but by a simple choice to save people. The leader admits Dust is more than he seems, but it changes nothing. In his eyes, a guide is still just a guide. And Dust knows he's right. His entire party is out of commission. His only hope is the hero who was hunting these bandits. And his new mission is to stall for as long as he can. With his purpose clear, he charges forward one last time. He lunges forward, putting everything into this final gambit. The leader's eyes widen, bracing for the incoming attack. But the charge was just a feint, a clever misdirection. Dust's eyes are locked onto his one and only target. The leader realizes he's been played. Someone's feeling foolish. Dust knows his sword is broken and his fists alone can't buy him time. So he aims for the one place that will have a definite effect, the wound. But the leader catches his wrist, stopping the attack cold. He retaliates with a furious punch, aiming to end this now. But Dust ducks under the blow, his focus completely unbroken. He uses his entire body, driving his shoulder into the bandit leader. His eyes are locked on, filled with a desperate, unyielding focus. The leader scoffs, unimpressed by the guide's one lucky shot, but Dust refuses to fall, pushing back with every last ounce of strength. The effort is futile. He's slammed hard against the stone wall. A scream of defiance rips through the air as he's thrown back. The leader calls him a fool for even daring to resist his fate. Dust's world blurs as he's sent skidding across the cavern floor. The villain admits he's bored and ready to end this waste of time. But even on the ground, Dust clings to his leg, refusing to let him pass. Dust lies broken, his will finally starting to fade. The leader mocks his futile hope, asking if he's waiting for a hero. A cruel, vicious smile spreads across the bandit's face. He hauls Dust to his feet, announcing a change of plans. Our boy is completely at the villain's mercy. The leader admits he underestimated Dust's potential for trouble. So now his new plan is simple: kill everyone, no witnesses, no problems. Dust knows he has to hold on, but his body is shutting down. His last thought is an apology to Reina for failing to protect her. But even now his hand clenches, refusing to give up completely. The bandit leader's arm tenses, ready to end this pathetic struggle. Dust is dragged across the stone, completely overpowered. His mind drifts back to his one simple desire: to save everyone. He wanted to be the person he dreamed of as a child. He wanted to be a hero, a being who could put everyone at ease just by existing. But his eyes reflect a very different, brutal reality. He's lifted into the air, his dream feeling impossibly far away. The villain holds him up, a perfect picture of his failure. And in this moment of despair, a single tear escapes. The bandit leader's grip tightens, crushing Dust's gauntlet like paper. He puts all his strength into this final, contemptuous act. But his victory is cut short by an unexpected arrival. A blur of white and steel cuts through the cavern's gloom. The hero he was running from has finally caught up to him. He can't believe the world's strongest are wasting time on a common thief. He curses Dust, realizing the guide's stalling tactic actually worked. The knight informs him that with the big boss gone, it's time to take out the trash. The bandit leader declares this is where the chase will end, one way or another. And the hero calmly agrees. Today, someone's story is definitely coming to an end. He crushes the gauntlet, vowing to capture the hero himself. With a furious roar, he lunges at the armored knight. The two warriors clash in a blur of desperate motion. The bandit's eyes are wide with a crazed, unhinged fury. But his rage is met with a swift, decisive counter. With the threat handled, the knight checks on the survivors. He sees Dust's condition and urges him to get medical help. But Dust, ever the stubborn one, insists that he's fine. He explains that his unconscious friends are the real priority. Even now, his first thought is for the safety of his party. The knight watches as Dust finally succumbs to his injuries. The hero notes with a sigh that the kid has passed out. After pushing his body far past its limits, Dust finally collapses. His consciousness fades into a deep, exhausted sleep. But then, his eyes snap open with a sudden jolt. He finds himself bandaged and lying in an unfamiliar bed. He's in a small cathedral on the outskirts of a village. He's surprised to find that despite his injuries, he feels no pain at all. A reflection in the window reveals a familiar figure standing behind him. It's the hero who informs him he's been unconscious for 3 days. Dust recognizes the armored figure as the one who saved them. The hero assures him he'll be fine, thanks to the cathedral's priests. He confirms the rest of the party is also safe and recovering nearby. But the hero has been waiting, needing to speak with Dust about something important. He introduces himself as Arella, a hero acting on the king's orders. He explains that even in these peaceful times, evil never really takes a vacation. New monsters have been sighted, including one that looks hauntingly familiar. And shadowy organizations are on the move, their motives a complete mystery. Dust wryly notes that the world has no shortage of problems to solve. Arella agrees, his tone suggesting this is where Dust comes in. He theorizes they're trying to fill the void left by the Demon King. Dust listens intently, the gravity of the situation sinking in. The hero then reveals he investigated the labyrinth incident. He praises Dust's strategy, which led to the bandits' capture. Dust realizes his plan worked, as Arella notes that brains often beat brawn, and with that the hero finally gets to the point. He extends a hand, admitting his journey needs a guide like Dust. Dust is completely floored. Talk about a promotion. His mind reels, unable to process the hero's request. He can only stammer, searching for the right words to say. Arella explains their next destination is already set. Their first stop on this grand adventure, the Golem Forest. But their planning session is cut short by a creaking door. It's Reina, who apparently overheard the entire conversation. Dust tries to calm her down, but she's already pleading her case to the hero. She argues that Dust is a liability who needs her protection. You know, for his own good. She insists he can't just abandon her after everything they've been through. Reina is ready to drop out of school, certain her magic will be invaluable. Her resolve is absolute, her decision already made. She makes one final, desperate plea to join the hero's party, and so a new chapter begins for our unlikely hero. Their journey takes them far from the labyrinth's familiar stone. Dust and Reina have officially joined the hero's party. He accepted the offer for one simple, burning reason. This adventure is a chance to finally become strong enough to face the monster that haunts his past. But his dark thoughts are interrupted by the hero's voice. Arella tells him to lead on, but Dust notices something off. He points out Reina's unusually cheerful expression. Apparently, the golem forest isn't quite what she expected. Dust warns her that this place might not live up to her expectations. They arrive at a desolate landscape of twisted rock and deep chasms. The new party carefully navigates a treacherous cliffside path. They're dwarfed by the sheer scale of the rocky canyon. Reina points out the obvious lack of golems in the golem forest. Dust clarifies this is just a mine, and she won't find any cute rock pets here. Arella explains that these golems are a special, naturally occurring breed. Unlike those made by wizards, these are born from pure, massive mana stones. The hero confirms the mine's rich mana deposits are the source of the problem. But Dust wants to know their true purpose for coming to this dangerous place. Arella explains their mission, to investigate a suspicious group. Meanwhile, a masked figure complains about being the new guy, but his grumbling is cut short when he spots our heroes. He notes the party heading deeper into the mine, wanting to avoid them, but Reina confirms they're here to investigate that very group. A group known for their white masks and hooded cloaks, which, unfortunately for this guy, is his exact work uniform. Arella's gaze locks on, confirming they found their man. The poor kid is completely oblivious to the danger he's in, and just like that, the hero's party makes its move. The masked man flees, screaming in panic at his pursuers. He glances back, his fear giving way to desperation. With nowhere left to run, he takes a leap of faith off the cliff. He lands on a narrow ledge below, completely cornered. Dust calmly points out the obvious. He's trapped. But their target just removes his mask with a confident smirk. He clenches his fist, promising this fight is far from over. Elsewhere, a blue-eyed boy echoes the same defiant words. The scene gives Dust a strange sense of déjà vu, confusing Arella. The hero seems unsettled by Dust's sudden observation. A colossal golem rises from the canyon, its body crackling with mana. The masked kid smirks, revealing he lured them right into a trap. The party is stunned, but Arella insists natural golems are peaceful. Dust sarcastically asks if it's just trying to give them a friendly high five. Elsewhere, the blue-eyed boy seems just as confused by the situation. The golem's massive stone fist descends, ready to crush them all. The boy's eyes widen in terror as he faces the same imminent threat. The fist slams down, shaking the very foundations of the mine. Reina panics, screaming that Dust's theory was clearly wrong. But the hero, Arella, steps forward, ready to handle this himself. He meets the golem's fist, his body a living shield. The very ground shatters under the force of the impact. The colossal stone fist is stopped dead in its tracks. Dust theorizes that someone is controlling it from the core. Arella realizes he needs to draw the enemy's attention away. And elsewhere, the true culprits watch from the shadows. They realize their attack is blocked and order another strike. He's starting to realize this isn't your average tourist group. His eyes widen as he assesses the unexpected resistance. The golem rears back, ready to unleash another devastating blow. Through a magical lens, the true culprit watches the hero's every move. He can't believe Arella managed to block the golem's attack. He orders another strike, focusing all power on the man on its arm. But Reina spots him, pointing out the returning masked nuisance. The golem's hand clenches, preparing to swat the hero like a fly. Arella knows a direct confrontation is a losing battle and changes tactics. He plants his foot, bracing for his next impossible move. And with a burst of speed, he charges straight up the golem's arm. He dodges the descending fist, using the monster's own body as a path. The hero sprints up the colossal limb, turning the battlefield into a racetrack. He treats the colossal arm like a personal runway, sprinting towards his goal. The hero's focus is absolute, his gaze locked on the target ahead. Each stride is filled with an impossible, earth-shaking power. He closes the distance with a speed that defies all logic. Arella digs in his heels, preparing for the next part of his insane plan. He uses the momentum to slide across the stone, kicking up a cloud of dust. Dust and Reina can only watch, their jaws practically on the floor. The hidden controllers watch the hero's approach with growing concern. They realize he's not running away. He's using their golem as a bridge. The villains panic, their perfect trap now turning into a direct confrontation. The villain boasts that golem masters don't need to fight directly, but Arella stands his ground, ready to face whatever comes next. The villain reveals he wasn't just controlling one golem. He summons more minions from the very earth beneath them. Two new, more powerful golems rise to join the fight. Dust reminds Reina they need to focus on their original target. Elsewhere, the blue-eyed boy is also facing his own heroic battle. Arella prepares to take on the entire golem army by himself. Meanwhile, Dust and Reina continue their pursuit of the masked man. But one of the new golems has already locked onto them. Arella stands his ground, facing the new, darker golem. Through his helmet, his focus is absolute and unwavering. He sidesteps, narrowly avoiding a preliminary strike. The golem looms over him, a construct of pure malice. Arella clenches his fist, deciding it's time to get serious. With a flash of light, he finally draws his weapon, a hero's blade, ready to dispense some righteous justice. The other golem charges up a magical attack of its own, but Arella is already in motion, a blur of white and gold. He closes the distance, his intent perfectly, terrifyingly clear. He faces the dark golem, a blur of white against the stone. The creature brings its fist down with earth-shattering force. A brutal impact echoes through the canyon, but the blow is stopped, grinding against an unseen force. Arella uses the golem's own arm as a launch pad for his counter. His blade flashes, a streak of light against the dark stone. With a single fluid motion, he cuts straight through its neck. The golem's head is severed, the light fading from its eyes. The hidden villains can only watch, stunned by the hero's power. They realize their golems are useless, just as the hero disappears from sight. The golem master's eye widens in absolute terror. He and his partner realize their perfect hideout has just been found. Because the hero, Arella, is standing silhouetted in their doorway, a blur of white cuts through the darkness of their cave. Arella calmly announces that their game of hide-and-seek is over. Meanwhile, Dust and Reina are still chasing their own masked target. Dust asks for a binding spell, but Reina admits she can't cast while running, so he suggests she hop on his back. For tactical reasons. She's flustered for a moment before coming up with her own idea, but their target is still pulling away, glancing back in desperation. She suggests a magical broom ride, and Dust is clearly not a fan of the plan. The masked man stops, believing he's finally shaken his pursuers, but his relief is short-lived as Dust dive bombs him from above. His eyes are locked on, a picture of pure, unyielding focus. The masked man can only look up in absolute, wide-eyed terror. Dust tackles him mid-air, sending them both crashing to the ground. The impact sends a shockwave across the narrow stone ledge. Dust admits the rough landing threw him off his game. A minor setback, surely. But his gaze remains sharp, ready for the next move. The masked man seizes the opportunity, landing a swift kick to Dust's side. Dust clenches his fist, ready to begin the interrogation. The masked man can only curse him, his threats muffled by Dust's grip. With a painful twist, Dust demands to know what they're planning. The man grits his teeth, clearly not used to being on the receiving end. He tries to play dumb, insisting he doesn't know anything. But Dust applies a little more pressure, encouraging him to remember. He retrieves a small pouch, confirming he's found what they were after. With the target neutralized, Reina checks in, worried about their chaotic landing. Dust playfully accuses her of throwing him off the broom out of spite. She denies it, but her flustered expression tells a slightly different story. He clutches his arm, the pain a sharp reminder of their recent battle. But his focus isn't on his own wounds. Reina notices his bandaged hand, her voice laced with concern. He realizes her own hand bears a scar from the labyrinth fight. Without a word, he begins to heal her with his own divine power. He apologizes, admitting she was hurt while protecting him. She's flustered but accepts, thanking him for his concern. But their quiet moment is interrupted by a sudden realization. Their captive mocks them from the floor, clearly not a fan of the romantic tension. Dust gets back to the interrogation, demanding to know the pouch's purpose. But a sudden sound from the other room snaps him back to reality. The captive is stunned to see the hero, Arella, has already arrived. Arella reports that he's found the other culprits, but there's a problem. They're holed up behind a magical barrier, making a direct assault impossible. Dust asks Reina for a magic sealing spell, but it's not in her repertoire. With magic off the table, Dust scans a nearby warehouse for another solution. He spots a discarded sack among the supplies, containing a fine white powder. And just like that, a new, incredibly strange plan begins to form. He asks Reina about her magic, confirming that it generates intense heat. With that final piece of information, Dust clenches his fist, his strategy set. Dust declares he can create a situation where their magic is useless. Inside their hideout, the two masked villains are waiting for a mysterious arrival. They're confident in their position, believing they just need to hold out. But their wait is cut short by a sudden intrusion. A cloud of white powder erupts into the cave, catching them completely off guard. They curse the smokescreen, moving to raise their magical barrier. But one of them realizes it's not smoke, it's just flour. So, a baking emergency? His partner screams a warning, realizing that using magic will trigger an explosion. The two villains are now trapped in a fine, combustible cloud. Dust explains a simple truth. Fine particles plus heat, like mana, equals a very bad day. Dust lays down the ultimatum, daring them to fight in this powder keg. He tells them he won't stop them, and the villains weigh their options. Faced with an explosive end, they wisely choose to surrender. With the immediate threat handled, the scene shifts elsewhere. But in another part of this world, a new power is stirring. A hulking figure stands, its body a canvas of raw strength. It declares that the time has finally come to make its move. The creature steps forward, its presence radiating pure menace. Elsewhere, another figure begins a journey of their own. The monstrous being and a robed companion travel towards a distant goal. The robed figure reports they've arrived too late to find their targets. But the hulking creature seems completely unconcerned by the news. He simply declares they will stay 2 steps ahead from now on. Back with our heroes, they travel onward in a simple carriage. Dust holds a sleeping Reina, relieved the fight ended without bloodshed. We flash back a few hours to the interrogation of the masked man. He explains how he used a dark item to corrupt the golem's core, and confirms that the hero's holy power can reverse the damage. So Arella purified the golem and sent the culprits to the cathedral. With the mission finally over, Dust allows himself a moment of rest. But their peaceful journey is cut short by a sudden, violent stop. A new voice orders them out of the carriage, demanding their surrender. It's a group of bandits, led by a man who clearly skipped leg day. The driver panics, but Arella is already stepping out to face the threat. The bandit leader's confidence wavers when he spots the hero's armor. Arella corrects him. Knight is a bit of an understatement. The bandit leader cracks his knuckles, ready to test this hero's reputation. But he reveals his trump card, a group of terrified bound hostages. Dust looks to Arella, who advises against any rash movements. Another bandit smirks, revealing they have even more backup hidden nearby. But a new player emerges from the shadows, his body wrapped in dark, writhing energy. And beneath the hood is a familiar, nightmarish mask. One of the bandits screams a desperate warning to his boss. But the leader ignores him, ready to execute a hostage to make his point. Dust's eyes narrow. He's seen this monster before. The masked man strikes first, a blur of motion from the shadows. The bandit can only look back in stunned disbelief. Another bandit screams as his arm is consumed, clearly not a fan of the new management. The leader roars in fury, still trying to use the hostages as leverage, but his threats are met with another impossibly fast attack. The masked man's attack is a blur of dark, consuming energy. The bandit leader squares up, ready to take on this new threat. But the masked man dismisses him as just another pest in his way. In a flash, the fight is already over. The masked figure reassures one of the hostages they're now safe. The hostage looks up, mistaking this dark figure for a hero. Dust watches the brutal aftermath, clearly unsettled by the scene. Reina gags, overwhelmed by the smell of blood in the air. He stares at the carnage, a familiar darkness in his eyes. Reina tries to pull him away, but Dust is looking for Arella. With the threat neutralized, Arella offers a comforting bow to the freed hostages. But Dust glances back, realizing the hero has suddenly vanished. A new figure appears, apologizing for his delayed introduction. He reveals his name is Ram, a hero who operates from the shadows. Back in the carriage, the party makes introductions with their new mysterious companion. Dust realizes Ram was with them the whole time, completely hidden from view. But as they talk, Reina realizes something doesn't quite add up. She finally asks the obvious question, why are there 2 heroes? She turns to Dust for an explanation, clearly out of the loop. He explains the difference between a state-sanctioned hero and the one chosen by the Holy Sword. Ram explains his nickname, Shadow, is for assassination, which Reina finds unheroic. Arella reveals his own title is the Pursuer, thanks to his enhanced senses. He mentions other heroes, each with their own imposing title and presence. Reina struggles to process this sudden flood of hero-based lore. She tries to summarize. Titled heroes serve the king. Holy Sword heroes fight the Demon King. But while one group gets all the fame, the other works quietly in the background. She proudly confirms her understanding, earning a rare compliment from Dust. Dust admits he'd love to meet them all, and Ram hints that day is coming soon. Our boy gets a little too excited, much to Reina's utter confusion. Because soon all heroes will gather for a holy sword retrieval mission. Reina connects the dots, realizing a holy sword means a demon king is on the way. Ram quickly backpedals, insisting it was all a joke. A very, very poorly timed joke. Arella cuts in, assuring them there's no need to panic about any impending doom. But Dust knows the truth. The demon king is already gone, so it's best to just move on. Their carriage rolls to a stop, announcing their arrival at the next mission. Dust steps out, asking Arella about the incident that brought these two powerful heroes together. The hero explains their task, to investigate a string of disappearances in this very forest. Dust looks up at the colossal trees, learning this place is shrouded in perpetual darkness. Arella takes the lead, suggesting they first visit the village that sent out the distress call. Reina's gaze is fixed ahead, her expression hardening as they prepare to step into the gloom. Reina calls out to Cariel, urging him to keep moving. But Dust is lost in thought, theorizing about their unseen enemy. He points out a strange pattern in their recent missions. They've only been fighting other people, not monsters. Reina dismisses it, teasing him about his usefulness. He agrees to move on, but her words seem to strike a nerve. He can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. He's convinced only a magical beast would operate here. But as he takes a step, a new possibility emerges. And with a flash of insight, he knows he's been wrong all along. He's certain of the culprit's identity, a single thought cutting through the noise. The party steps onto a rocky outcrop, their destination in sight. Below them lies the village, a place shrouded in an eerie silence. A young boy is the first to spot them, pointing them towards the town square. The residents have gathered, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and despair. Arella greets the village representative, a firm and reassuring handshake. The man offers them rest, but the hero insists on starting the investigation immediately. Dust and Reina watch on, the grim reality of their mission setting in. Arella gets ready to take some very official-looking notes. Their first witness is a woman named Nora, who speaks of her son in the past tense. She confirms her son went missing in the forest just 2 days ago. Arella asks for the details, her expression darkening with the memory. She recalls walking through the forest, holding her son's hand. Knowing the danger, she kept him close as they traveled. She remembers looking down at him, a moment of calm before the chaos. But in an instant, her world was turned upside down. She explains that even though she was holding him, he simply vanished. Arella confirms the impossible. The boy disappeared right before her eyes. She clarifies she heard a strange sound and passed out, waking to find him gone. The sound she remembers was a terrifying, inhuman scream. She describes the sound as a haunting, monstrous song. Arella then turns to the next witness, a young man from the village. He introduces himself as Mark, one of the search party volunteers. He admits his search was fruitless, but he did catch a glimpse of the creature. The party leans in, eager to hear the first real description of their target. Mark's expression darkens as he recalls the strange sight. He describes a bizarre creature with a snake's tail and chicken legs. After the interviews, the party cross-references their notes and sketches. But their conclusions are split. Reina says basilisk, Dust says siren. He tries to pull rank as the guide, but she reminds him she went to monster school. Arella tries to play mediator, but Reina cuts in, telling them to stop fighting. She reminds them they have a forest to explore tomorrow and suggests they all get some rest. The next morning, however, Reina feels under the weather, her nose completely stuffed up. Dust notices her condition, asking if she's feeling all right. She turns it back on him, teasing that he's just nervous about his siren theory being wrong. But he admits he was up all night, realizing this case is beyond human capability. The two heroes arrive, reminding everyone of their mission. Find the child, kill the monster. With their objective clear, the party steps into the oppressive darkness of the forest. Arella decides they'll cover more ground by splitting into 2 teams. Dust draws his blade, ready to mark their path so they don't get lost. Arella's enhanced senses pick up the faint, ambiguous scent of blood. He confirms the smell of water, pointing them towards a distant lake. Ram decides to scout ahead, moving with incredible speed. He vanishes into the shadows, leaving Arella to wait for his report. We learn Ram has the ability to interact with the shadows themselves. This power allows him to travel instantly through the darkness, a handy trick for a guy named Shadow. He arrives at the location, remembering a siren needs a lake to survive. But when he gets there, he finds the lake has completely dried up. Elsewhere, Reina reports their own search has come up empty. But Dust reveals there's one last place they need to investigate. He points upwards towards the forest's oppressive canopy. He explains the trees are so dense they create a second ceiling. He spots claw marks, evidence that something has been climbing. Reina asks who's brave enough to go up and investigate, and with a sigh, she volunteers herself for the job. Dust calls up, offering her an out if she's too scared. But she spots a large opening and decides to press on. She reaches the edge, pulling herself up for a better look. With a final heave, she peers into the darkness beyond. Inside, she finds a nest filled with bones and decay. She hesitates at the edge, peering into the absolute blackness, but a sudden lurch sends her tumbling into the nest. She braces herself, hoping this isn't a repeat of their last near-death experience. Steeling her nerves, she decides to face whatever's inside. She takes a deep breath, beginning her countdown. On 3, she plunges into the unknown. She lands inside, the darkness completely suffocating. But her eyes adjust to find absolutely nothing. She's confused, the nest is empty and she can't see a thing. Turns out a strict magic school curfew does not prepare you for spelunking. Reina steels her nerves, her face tense in the gloom. She realizes it's not total darkness. Moonlight filters through. She conjures a small orb of light, keeping it dim to avoid detection. The tiny light barely pushes back the oppressive shadows, but her light reveals 2 small, glowing eyes watching from the dark. A cold sweat breaks out across her face. So much for being alone. The silence is broken by the frantic pounding of her own heart. Every footstep echoes, amplified by the suffocating tension. But in her panic, she's overlooked one crucial sense. A familiar, disgusting odor hits her. The unmistakable smell of death. A sharp gasp escapes her lips, her eyes wide with terror. She realizes her cold masked the scent, a potentially fatal mistake. Alone in the suffocating dark, her only thought is to escape. She steels her nerves, trying to push past the rising panic. But as she takes a step, her foot catches on something unseen. She looks down, her heart pounding in her chest. Reaching into the darkness, she feels for the strange obstruction. Her light reveals a large, smooth, spherical object in the nest. It's a massive egg nestled among the bones and filth. And with a jolt of recognition, she knows exactly what it belongs to. A jolt of pure, unadulterated terror rips through her mind. Because she's not just in a nest, she's in a monster's larder. She clamps a hand over her mouth, desperate to stifle her scream. Paralyzed by fear, she can only crouch in the suffocating darkness. Her heart hammers against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of panic. She stays perfectly still, convinced any sound will be her last. She forces herself to breathe, fighting back the rising tide of fear. Alone in the dark, she waits for her racing pulse to slow. After what feels like an eternity, a fragile calm begins to settle in. She lets out a shaky breath, a small victory in a very bad situation. With her resolve hardened, she knows she has to escape now. But from the darkness, the nest's owner makes a surprise appearance. She locks eyes with the creature, her body completely frozen in terror. Her mind races, trying to form a plan through the sheer panic. She tenses, waiting for the perfect moment to make her move. And with a burst of adrenaline, she finally makes a break for it. Meanwhile, down below, Dust is starting to get restless. He realizes she's been gone way too long for a simple recon mission. His worry suddenly sharpens into a dawning, terrible realization. Just as a blood-curdling scream rips through the forest canopy, Dust knows he can't go in alone and decides to regroup with the heroes. But his plan is cut short by a brilliant explosion from the canopy above. The sound alerts Arella and Ram, who immediately race towards the guide's position. Dust stands frozen, staring up at the source of the commotion. His confusion quickly turns to wide-eyed horror, because Reina is now plummeting from the sky, straight towards him. Panic sets in. His only thought is that he absolutely cannot lose her. He sprints forward, a desperate blur of motion to intercept her fall. And with perfect timing, he catches her just before she hits the ground. So much for needing backup. He holds her close, his voice filled with concern as he asks if she's okay. Reina is battered and terrified, gasping for air in his arms. Dust's eyes widen, demanding to know what horrors she faced up there. He tries to heal her, but she weakly explains the monster got her first. He holds her close, telling her to take her time and explain everything. Later, recovering in bed, she recounts her harrowing tale to the party. She explains she was captured and only escaped by blasting her way out. Dust questions the monster's motives, and Reina confirms it was a basilisk storing its prey. With the threat identified, Arella declares they're going back up to find the child. As Dust turns to leave, Reina calls out his real name, stopping him in his tracks. She makes him promise to come back alive, her voice filled with genuine fear. He gives her a confident smile, promising he'll be fine. Back with the heroes, Dust takes charge, explaining the basilisk's true nature. He clarifies this one uses illusions, not petrification, a key detail for their strategy. He explains a guide's true purpose, to analyze threats and eliminate surprises. Their knowledge of ecosystems and monsters makes them invaluable strategists. But he admits that for all their brains, guides are still notoriously weak. A minor detail, I'm sure. With the briefing over, the party finally enters the monster's lair. They find themselves in the massive dark space hidden in the canopy. Arella's enhanced senses confirm the monster's scent is thick in the air. Ram identifies the smell of snake and chicken, but Dust senses something more. His eyes widen with a dawning, terrible realization. He explains that monsters, just like adventurers, are graded by their power, and this system puts the basilisk in a very, very high tier. He screams a warning as the creature finally makes its move. Its illusions and lack of weak points classify it as a deadly upper-class monster, but he's stunned by its impossible size and terrifying speed. His body locks up, paralyzed by a familiar haunting fear. The same terror that froze him as a child now holds him in its grip. But before the beast can strike, he's shoved hard out of the way. Arella's gauntlet takes the hit, a brutal testament to the hero's strength. The basilisk's beak slams down with brutal, bone-shattering force, but Arella's gauntlet holds firm, absorbing the devastating impact. The monster recoils, its beak bloodied from the hero's unyielding defense. Arella checks on Dust, telling him to leave the heavy lifting to the professionals. But their problems multiply as a smaller, angrier chicken lizard joins the fray. The hero orders Dust to focus on the mission, find the missing child. Dust grits his teeth, determined not to be the useless baggage on this trip. He decides to observe first, then go play hide-and-seek with the kid. The creature's talons dig into the ground, ready for another strike. As it lunges, Arella calls out for his partner, Ram. Ram dismisses the smaller beast, its growl barely registering as a threat. He remembers Dust's one simple rule: never, ever make eye contact. With a burst of speed, he closes the distance in an instant. A brutal strike lands, a testament to the shadow's deadly efficiency. The monster is torn apart before it can even register the attack. Ram stands over the fallen beast, clearly a fan of quick, violent solutions. But as he turns, he realizes something about the larger creature is wrong. He notices with a jolt that it's missing its signature snake-like tail. His mind races, questioning if this is even a basilisk at all. And from across the nest, Arella seems to be having the exact same thought. Ram launches himself at the larger beast, a blur of deadly intent. His fist connects, tearing a massive, gaping hole in its chest. The wound is deep, a seemingly fatal blow to the creature. But the flesh begins to writhe, knitting itself back together. Ram is stunned. This monster has a regeneration ability. From the sidelines, Dust realizes this is no basilisk. He screams out the new strategy: aim for the heart. Ram acknowledges the order, his arm poised for another strike. The creature lets out a furious shriek, its wound completely healed. With his new target in mind, the shadow clenches his fist, ready for round two. Ram moves like a phantom, his dark energy coiling for the strike. He becomes a blur, closing the distance in a heartbeat. Meanwhile, Arella engages the other creature with his holy blade. His gauntlet is a wall of steel, ready for the impact. The hero's blade finds its mark with righteous fury. The beast lets out a final desperate shriek of agony. He's engulfed in the brutal aftermath, which is never good for the dry cleaning bill. The creature dissolves into nothing, its life force extinguished. But Arella knows this fight is raising more questions than answers. And from the sidelines, Dust's mind is racing towards a new conclusion. Arella stands frozen, a sudden realization dawning on him. Ram clutches his head as a piercing sound fills the air. Dust's eyes widen in horror. His worst theory was right all along. From the shadows, a new figure emerges, its wings unfurling. The two heroes turn to face the true master of this nest. The siren reveals itself, its voice a chilling command to kill. Arella stands frozen, caught in the monster's hypnotic song. But Ram fights back, his will a fortress against the mental assault. He knows they have to escape the song's influence, and fast. But his body is locking up, paralyzed by the siren's deadly power. Arella is completely frozen, his mind trapped by the siren's song. Dust can't believe it. A siren shouldn't even be in this forest. The very presence of this monster defies all logic and known ecology. The creature's song intensifies, a wave of pure psychic agony. He feels his own consciousness slipping, his will being eroded. His vision blurs, the world fading into an unfocused haze. But he fights back, refusing to be just another puppet for the monster. He forces himself to focus, to push through the mental fog. He can't afford to fail now, not with everyone's lives on the line. He realizes the sound is so intense it might have ruptured his eardrums. He dismisses the pain, his focus absolute. He knows he can heal the damage later. Right now, he has a job to do. But Arella is already moving, stepping between the monster and his guide. He faces the siren, completely unfazed by its hypnotic gaze. The monster's eye locks onto him, its song failing to find purchase. Ram also stands his ground, a shadow resisting the creature's call. Through his helmet, his will remains an unbreakable fortress. But the siren turns its attention back to the weakest link, Dust. Arella turns to him, his voice cutting through the psychic noise. But our boy can only clutch his ears, the sound an agonizing physical force. Arella pulls Dust back, suggesting a tactical retreat as the siren shrieks. But Ram stands frozen, his back to them, caught in the monster's song. A firm hand on his shoulder from Arella snaps him out of the trance. Dust thanks them, asking if they're okay after the brutal psychic assault. Ram confirms he's fine, but they need to figure out this regenerating chimera. Before it regenerates them out of existence. Dust realizes its healing ability is just like the basilisk they fought earlier. The heroes admit they're outmatched, needing to find the heart of a two-headed beast. But Dust's guide knowledge kicks in, deducing the heart must be in the chicken half. He then questions which body is dominant now that the siren is fused to it. He grits his teeth, convinced there's a clever solution, just like with the golem. Dust racks his brain, convinced he's missing a simple, basic clue. The heroes agree to trust their guide's analysis to form a strategy. Arella lays out the grim reality. A field of basilisks stands between them and the siren. Their plan is simple. One hero acts as bait, the other goes for the kill. Classic. Arella confirms his holy sword is charged and ready for one massive attack. Ram volunteers for bait duty, leaving Arella to take the 1-in-a-million shot. They turn to Dust, the entire plan hinging on his one crucial answer. With a newfound clarity, Dust is ready to give them their target. But elsewhere, a new player steps onto a very different stage. A mysterious robed figure notes the night is perfect for monsters, but not for heroes. The robed figure clenches his fist, explaining the price of his power. He reveals his shadowy form, boasting that even heroes are no match for the night. And with a sudden burst of speed, he launches himself into the fray, only to be immediately pinned down by one of the monstrous chimeras. So much for that grand entrance. But he looks up, completely unfazed by the beast looming over him. He retaliates with a lightning-fast kick straight to its head. The creature is sent flying back, stunned by the brutal counter. It's left dazed, completely unprepared for what comes next. The shadowy fighter's eye gleams, his target locked in. A single, precise projectile finds its mark right in the monster's eye. The shadowy fighter unleashes a devastating, sweeping attack. He's silhouetted by the sheer force of his own power. But his attack only serves to draw out the true master of the nest. Elsewhere, Arella plants his feet, bracing for a different assault. A massive shockwave of energy rips through the cavern. The mysterious newcomer launches himself back into the fight, but amidst the chaos, Dust is sent reeling from a brutal blow. The battle becomes a blur of desperate, high-speed motion. The robed fighter closes the distance, his target now the siren herself. His eye glows from the shadows, his intent terrifyingly clear. The siren looks down, her gaze cold and calculating. The robed fighter believed he'd landed a fatal blow, but the crushing pressure on his body snaps him back to reality. He's surrounded by the monstrous chimeras, their eyes glowing with malice. He's caught, realizing he fell right into the monster's trap. A powerful force erupts, a whirlwind of pure energy. The siren's song whips through the air, a vortex of psychic power. The entire nest is consumed by the sonic assault, so much for a stealthy entrance. Her song now controls the chimeras, turning them into puppets. The siren fuses with one of the beasts, launching a devastating attack. The siren's cold eye watches, its mind a vortex of deadly calculation. But through his helmet, Arella's will remains an unbreakable shield. He raises his holy sword, preparing for the one shot that will end this. The hero turns to Dust, asking for the final, crucial command. Dust gives the order, and Ram becomes a blur, targeting the basilisk. But the siren unleashes another wave of its hypnotic song. Its eye glows, the psychic assault intensifying across the nest. The chimera's beak descends, a massive, deadly weapon aimed at Arella. But the hero raises his gauntlet, ready to meet the attack head-on. The impact is brutal, a shower of blood marking the violent collision. While the heroes fight, Dust follows the stench into the monster's larder. He finds a horrifying pile of the creature's previous victims. But among them, he spots the missing child, still alive. His resolve hardens. He has to get the boy out now. But his rescue is cut short by a very angry, very large chicken. Dust is frozen, the sheer size of the beast overwhelming him. He glances back at the child, realizing he's just 10 steps away. But the creature's other head, a vicious snake, makes its move. Dust braces himself, knowing the attack is coming. The snakehead lunges, aiming to make him its next meal. With the child in his arms, Dust grits his teeth, trapped and exposed. He knows the grim truth. There's no outrunning a monster this fast. His mind races, desperately searching for any way out of this death trap. And then, his eyes lock onto a single desperate possibility. He spots a path forward, right through the horrifying pile of bodies. With no time to hesitate, he sprints, carrying the boy to safety. But the monster's presence looms, a constant, terrifying pressure. So he improvises, using the creature's own back as an escape route. You know, as one does. Each step on the massive beast is a gamble against its immense power. But his clever maneuver has officially gotten the chicken's attention. The chimera's massive talon slams down, shaking the entire nest. Dust grits his teeth, fighting to keep his footing against the shockwave. The impact sends a cloud of dust and debris ripping through the air. For a moment, the entire larder is consumed by the violent tremor. He leaps through the chaos, grabbing a vine to swing towards the child. His focus is absolute, knowing he has to pull the boy to safety. He dangles precariously, the child's life literally in his hands. Every muscle screams as he tries to haul them both up just a little more. His grip is iron, the only thing between them and a fatal fall. But the branch begins to splinter, threatening to give way at any second. He reaches out, his grip failing as the branch finally snaps. His heart sinks as he realizes he's plummeting into the abyss. But a gauntleted hand suddenly clamps onto his wrist, stopping his fall. Dust looks up, his shock giving way to a wave of pure relief. It's Ram, the shadow, asking if the guide is all right. So much for a dramatic rescue. With the child safe, the dark forest's missing person case is finally closed. Later, a hand pokes Dust's cheek as he sleeps off his injuries. It's Reyna, regretting that she couldn't use her magic to help them recover faster. Elsewhere, a robed figure with a familiar mask whispers an apology. His gaze is distant, his words filled with a sorrow we don't yet understand. Nora, the mother of the rescued boy, greets one of the heroes with a cheerful smile. She explains the village has prepared a feast as a token of their gratitude, but she notices Ram trying to slip away, a habit he awkwardly dismisses. She insists he attend, and makes a special request for Dust to be there as well. Elsewhere, a new robed figure with a familiar mask gets Ram's attention. This Lady Aquila asks for the results of the Monster Corpse investigation. Ram, his tone suddenly serious, asks if they can speak privately. Lady Aquila's masked gaze remains fixed on him, waiting for an explanation. She questions why he's brought her to this secluded alleyway. He reveals he needs to discuss the case and the dark future it might represent. He connects the two cases, the corrupted golem and the fused monster. The investigation revealed a common thread between the two incidents. The substance that fused the siren was the same one that tainted the golem. Lady Aquila realizes they're likely dealing with the same shadowy organization. But Ram explains there's a much more important point to discuss. He begins a history lesson on the Demon King and the Holy Sword. For centuries, the two have appeared in a cycle, roughly every 100 years. But he reveals there was one major exception to this ancient rule. A legendary hero named Perseon managed to kill two demon kings. Talk about an overachiever. The first was defeated 30 years ago, and the second just 10 years ago. Lady Aquila asks if he's blaming the legendary Persian for breaking the cycle. Ram clarifies that Persian's actions just made the old rules meaningless. She points out this is all just speculation, and he admits he has no proof. He confesses he doesn't understand what's happening, but he knows one thing for sure. This upcoming Holy Sword mission will be unlike anything they've ever faced. The scene shifts to a high tower in the royal palace of Vinat. Inside, a lone robed figure waits in a stark, empty chamber. A young man is told that the preparations are finally complete. This is Perseon, the legendary hero, ready to depart on another mission. Back with Ram, his mind is racing with thoughts of the Holy Sword and these new monsters. Back on his feet, Dust is greeted by the masked hero Ram. He tries to downplay his role, but Ram insists the guide was essential. It's a rare, light-hearted moment between the two warriors. Ram asks for a private chat, and Dust is more than happy to oblige. They agree to find a local restaurant to talk things over. But as they walk, Ram admits he has a specific question in mind. They sit down, and the hero finally gets to the point of their meeting. He asks why Dust's strategy focused on the basilisk during the siren fight. Dust smiles, ready to explain the simple logic he used in the heat of battle. He reveals the siren's gills make it a poor choice for a host body in a dry forest. Dust admits his guess was a simple one, but he's glad it paid off. But Dust has a question of his own, turning the conversation back to their first meeting. He asks why the hero seemed to avoid the light, but Ram counters with a question of his own. Dust is taken aback, trying to place the memory Ram is referring to. He remembers the brutal efficiency with which Ram dispatched the bandits. The shadow admits the sudden violence must have been a shock. He explains that people only see the glorious image of a hero. They don't see the dark deeds done in the name of saving others. He confesses that his hands are stained with the blood of monsters and men alike. A hero's path, he reveals, is one of endless necessary violence. Ram explains that without the hero's helmet, he's just a weapon. He became afraid to take it off to face the man underneath. He feared the way people looked at him, their expectations weighing him down. They admired a hero that he knew he could never truly be. He felt completely disconnected from the very people he was sworn to protect. So he chose to hide in the shadows, running from the title he carried. He knows he's not the savior they see, but a monster in a hero's skin. He confesses it's not because he dislikes people, it's the opposite. He keeps his distance because his hands are forever stained with blood. He breaks the heavy silence, thanking Dust for listening to his confession. Dust admits he only ever saw the surface of what a hero is. But even knowing their struggles, his core belief remains unshaken. His respect for heroes like Ram hasn't changed one bit. He explains there's a world of difference between killing and killing to save someone. He tells Ram he's not ignoring the darkness, but acknowledging it. He offers a simple truth. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow. Even as Ram faces the darkness, he's also moving towards the light. It's all just a matter of perspective, of which way you choose to look. Dust's words seem to strike a chord with the troubled hero. And for the first time, Ram turns away from the shadows and towards the light. Dust illustrates his point with a simple, powerful metaphor. He reminds Ram not to focus on the darkness, but on the lives he saves. Ram thanks him, and Dust humbly accepts, honored to have helped. But their therapy session is interrupted by a new arrival. It's Lady Akela, who seems amused by their heartfelt conversation. With their mission complete, the party prepares to leave the village. Ram gives a final wave, parting ways with his new friends. The party waves back, but someone thinks they hear a faint sound. Orella suddenly stops, his attention drawn to something on the ground. His hand clenches as he spots something he clearly wasn't expecting. But Ram has the nagging feeling he's forgotten something important. Meanwhile, the villagers are disappointed the heroes left before the party. But the Shadow's thoughts are already moving on. He clenches his fist, his purpose renewed. He reminds himself he became a hero to help people, just like his brothers. But his moment of reflection is suddenly shattered. A scream from the forest forces him to make a choice. But for a true hero, there's really no choice at all. He declares that saving people is more important than any mission. And with that, he races off towards the sound of danger, while Orella heads to the cathedral for a prophecy about the Holy Sword. Dust and Reyna take the opportunity to explore the nearby town. He suggests they split up to gather supplies, but Reyna seems hesitant. She gives him a look, clearly not a fan of the splitting up plan. Her mind flashes back to the time Dust had to carry her to safety. The memory leaves her feeling more than a little flustered. She nervously asks if they can just stick together this time. Dust, ever the fanboy, immediately looks for a magazine about heroes. Reyna playfully imagines how flustered he'd get at the thought of marrying one. He finds what he's looking for, grabbing the latest issue. He reads about the legendary hero Persian and the Holy Sword retrieval. The prophecy comes in two parts, its appearance and its location. The heroes get the location from the cathedral and return the sword. Sounds simple enough. Dust's mind is already working, connecting the dots about the legendary hero. Meanwhile, Ram's investigation of the forest comes up completely empty. But just as he decides to head back, his quiet patrol is interrupted. He's struck down by a brutal, unseen force, blood splattering from the impact. Pinned and wounded, he can only look up at the new, overwhelming threat. A hulking, shadowy beast looms over him, claiming it's not a monster. The creature's words hang in the air, a chilling contradiction to its terrifying form. Ram throws up a desperate block, his arm taking the full force of the blow. He barely avoids a fatal strike, his mind reeling from the close call. He identifies his attacker as a Blood Knight, another powerful, unknown variable. The creature grins, confirming it knows exactly who the hero is. Without another word, the Blood Knight launches itself forward. It winds up for a punch, its muscles coiling with immense power. The two warriors meet in a brutal clash of fists. But Ram is thrown back, stunned by the creature's raw strength. The Blood Knight presses its advantage, giving him no room to recover. A strange new power forms as Ram narrowly dodges another attack. Ram's shadow power lashes out with incredible speed. The Blood Knight admits the hero lives up to his shadowy reputation. He compliments Ram's clever use of the terrain to gain an advantage. Ram knows the name, but only one crucial detail. This thing hunts heroes. The creature taunts him, asking if he's planning his escape. But Ram is just being tactical, retreating to find the perfect opening. The Blood Knight is pleased, sensing the hero isn't one to run from a fight. It's always nice when your prey cooperates. With a firm step, the hulking creature prepares to close the distance. It unleashes a devastating blast of dark energy straight at the hero, but the attack seems to take a toll, the creature grunting in exertion. The blast rips through the forest, a vortex of pure destruction. The Blood Knight's very form seems to shift, its armor twisting. But Ram is already a blur, weaving through the storm of energy. He lands, stunned by the sheer scale of this new power. He realizes the creature's armor is a weapon, fueled by its own blood. He knows he can't win this from a distance. A direct fight is unavoidable. The Blood Knight mocks him, declaring that the time for tricks is over. But Ram seems completely unconcerned by the threat. He explains he gave up on simply surviving a long time ago. The creature is impressed, demanding Ram become a trophy worthy of its collection. The story shifts, focusing on Cariel's side of the tale. A mysterious figure asks Cariel if he's a fan of heroes. He admits he is, but his companion reveals a surprising dislike for them. Cariel asks for a reason, clearly confused by the sentiment. The figure explains that reality was a harsh disappointment. Our boy can only offer an awkward smile, not quite getting the point. The figure then directs his attention to a scene in the street. He points to a group of children playing in a nearby lot. One child is well-dressed and popular, the center of attention, while another is weak and alone and poses a difficult choice. The figure poses a difficult question. Who would Cariel choose to save? Cariel considers the impossible choice before him. He gives the only answer a hero in training could. He'd save both. Classic. His companion scoffs, finding the answer predictable and naive. He claims only those who read stories believe words can save the world. He argues that reality is different. You can't save everyone. The choice of who to abandon is a truth the stories never tell. But Cariel refuses to accept this cynical view of heroism. He insists that heroes push their limits because their stories are real. The figure gives up, seeing their debate is going absolutely nowhere. The figure reveals he overheard Cariel's talk with the hero. Cariel is stunned, demanding to know what he means, but his companion says actions speak louder than words. A dark power suddenly lashes out towards the popular child. The boy is engulfed in a blur of shadowy energy. Cariel roars in fury, demanding to know what he's doing, but the figure stops him, asking where he thinks he's going. Cariel is caught, his movement restricted by the shadows. At the same time, a massive dark form descends on the other child. The onlookers can only scream in terror at the unfolding chaos. The figure presents him with an impossible, cruel choice. He taunts Cariel, asking if he finally understands reality's harsh rules. But a new voice cuts in, refusing to choose and vowing to save both. The robed villain is caught completely off guard by this interruption. A young mage admits that the idiot's heroic plan was right all along. She unleashes a massive pillar of light, erupting from the ground. The entire street is consumed by the blinding magical explosion. The robed figure is brought to his knees, caught in the blast. So much for his lecture. His shadowy form begins to dissipate, fading into nothingness. Cariel watches, his eyes wide, as this new ally turns the tables. But the robed figure retaliates with a brutal kick of his own. Cariel is stunned, realizing the man is healing instantly. It's the same regeneration he saw with the basilisk. The villain grabs the young mage, his grip like iron. He rises to his feet, completely unfazed by her attack. The mage breaks free, forced into a desperate retreat. She glances back, her eyes wide with disbelief and fear. But the villain is already on the move, closing the distance. She runs for her life, her surprise attack having failed completely, and Cariel can only watch, still recovering on the ground. Cariel holds the injured mage, his resolve hardening in the chaos. But the robed villain seizes the opportunity, grabbing the child and fleeing. Cariel screams in fury, realizing the man is escaping into the forest. The mage tries to stop him, insisting they're no match for that kind of power. She knows their only real option is to find the hero and get backup. Meanwhile, Arella kneels in a grand cathedral, seeking guidance. A priestess delivers the prophecy he's been waiting to hear. The hero listens intently, his next mission finally taking shape. With the prophecy received, he's told his ride is ready to depart. But as he turns to leave, a voice calls out his title, stopping him cold. Cariel and the young mage rush to the hero, explaining a child was just kidnapped right in front of them. The mage confirms the culprit was a hooded figure using strange, dark powers. Cariel points the way, explaining the villain fled into the forest. Arella asks about the forest's size, and his companion confirms it's massive. But the companion reminds him of their true mission, hinting at secrets the public can't know. Arella is silent, the weight of his duty pressing down on him. His mind races, connecting the kidnapping to the Holy Sword and the Demon King. He clenches his gauntlet, knowing he has to make a choice. A hero's work is never done, is it? Cariel pleads with him, certain the kidnapper is working with demons and is far too powerful for them. He insists that only Arella can stop them, but the hero is already turning away. Arella explains this is his choice, asking for understanding. Elsewhere, the robed villain makes a promise of his own. He stands barefoot in a simple wooden room. The scene shifts to a rundown shack deep in the woods. Inside, he holds a finger to his lips, demanding silence. He holds the terrified child who begs to be released. The villain assures the boy he means him no harm. You know, standard kidnapper talk. He asks about the boy's parents, only to learn he's an orphan. The boy admits the other children bully him for his circumstances. He feels useless, lacking any talent in magic or fighting. The villain suggests they're not so different after all, but the boy frantically denies it, insisting they're nothing alike. He explains that he's powerless, unlike the robed man. The villain offers him that very power, but warns there's a catch. The boy hesitates, weighing the mysterious offer in his mind. He imagines a world where his friends no longer bully him. A world where his teachers would finally praise him. The villain repeats that there's just one simple condition. Seems legit. The boy's desperation takes over. He'll do anything for that power. The catch is revealed. He just has to become a demon. The villain's words hit home, a harsh truth for the boy. He offers a solution. With a demon's power, he won't need anyone's help. But the boy rejects the offer, wanting friends, not strength. He still clings to the hope that a hero will come and save him. The villain's response is a cruel, mocking laugh. He grabs the boy, shattering his naive hope with a simple truth. The heroes from the stories, he insists, are not real. A swift, brutal motion cuts through the air, ending the debate. The boy is left on the floor, his hope completely shattered. But a new voice cuts in. Surprised a hero actually showed up. The Blood Knight lunges, a whirlwind of claws and fury. But Ram is already a blur, moving faster than the eye can see. He plants his foot, ready to meet the monster's charge. But the creature is faster, its hand clamping onto his arm. Its jaws close around his limb, a brutal, crushing bite. Ram retaliates, driving his fist into the creature's side. The impact echoes through the forest, a testament to his strength. But the blow seems to do absolutely nothing. So much for a weak spot. Ram is thrown back, his own attack having failed completely. He realizes the blow was deflected, questioning the monster's true power. The creature's arm bleeds, but the damage is superficial. The blood hardens, its armor shifting into a new form. It swings its massive limb, a blur of dark, raw power. Ram realizes the armor is constantly, terrifyingly evolving. The hero grits his teeth, the pressure becoming immense. But the creature is too fast, its hand closing around his arm. Its fingers sharpen into claws, ready to tear him apart. A brutal swipe rips through the hero's defenses. The Blood Knight follows up with a devastating kick. Ram is sent flying, completely overwhelmed by the assault. Ram is sent spinning, the force of the impact nearly tearing him apart. He admits to himself that he had a bad feeling from the very start. He knew this fight would only end in endless, suffocating darkness. He doesn't know who the Blood Knight's allies are or why they're doing this. All he can do now is pray for his family, his friends, and for the light to protect them. Elsewhere, the kidnapped boy looks up, seeing a figure of hope in the distance. His eyes widen, reflecting the light of his unexpected savior. He prays for this boy, Cariel, to be protected until the very end. The child looks up in disbelief, realizing someone actually came for him. But the villain scoffs. It's not a hero, just a guide, and our boy Cariel is ready for a fight. The villain admits he's impressed Cariel actually showed up. He even mocks the unfamiliar sword clutched in his hand. Cariel explains the blade belongs to the hero, Lady Aquila. We flash back to Arella's shocking refusal to join the rescue mission. Cariel is completely lost, unable to understand the decision. He pleads, insisting only a hero can face this new threat. He asks the one question that cuts to the heart of it all. But Arella explains his duty to the Holy Sword comes first. Apparently, saving kids isn't in the job description. Back in the present, Cariel finally understands the hero's logic. He chose the path that saves the many over the one, but Cariel clenches his fist, refusing to accept this cold, hard logic. Lady Aquila agrees with the hero, stating the Holy Sword is their true purpose. But Cariel declares that if the hero won't act, then he will save the child. Reyna calls out his name, her voice filled with a desperate concern. Lady Aquila then changes her tune, vowing they'll handle the rescue after all. She stops Cariel just as he's about to leave on his own. Our boy turns back, confused by the sudden shift in plans. The hero offers him a weapon for the dangerous fight ahead. Cariel recognizes the blade, but Aquila assures him she can recall it at will. And then, she offers him a crucial piece of information: the prophecy itself. Aquila's prophecy is cryptic, a riddle of monsters and sacrifice. Cariel confronts the villain, demanding to know the reason for the kidnapping. The villain claims this isn't kidnapping, but a choice for the weak. You know, the kind of choice you can't refuse. Cariel sees the truth. This isn't help, it's recruitment. The villain justifies his actions, a self-proclaimed savior for the outcasts. But Cariel isn't buying this twisted philosophy for a second. He calls out the villain's hypocrisy, a twisted savior forcing his will on others. He challenges the man, his gaze unwavering and certain. The villain hints at his own tragic backstory, classic villain monologue incoming. But Cariel cuts him off, declaring him a monster through and through. The time for talk is officially over. The kidnapped boy watches, his eyes wide with fear, but Cariel's gaze is firm. He's taking the child back no matter what. The villain seems almost amused by the guide's harsh words. He notes that for a kid with no powers, Cariel arrives suspiciously fast. He deduces that our boy must have brought some friends along, and with that he lunges forward, a blur of dark, violent energy. His shadowy fist connects with a brutal, resounding impact. The villain puts his full weight behind the devastating blow. He's clearly not a fan of long goodbyes. His face is a mask of pure, focused aggression. But Cariel meets the attack, blocking with Lady Aquila's borrowed blade. The villain is thrown back, stunned by the force of Cariel's block. Our boy digs in his heels, refusing to give a single inch. And right on cue, Reina joins the fight, her hands glowing with power. She unleashes a wave of magic, cutting off the villain's escape route. The kidnapper turns, his attention now fixed on this new magical threat. He dodges with impossible speed, his bare feet barely touching the ground. A massive explosion of dark energy erupts from his body. He promises to show them a little demonstration. He boasts that becoming a monster isn't so bad after all. You know, for a career choice. Cariel stands ready, facing the villain's newly transformed monstrous limb. Cariel lays out the plan, identifying their foe as a human-monster hybrid. Reina's eyes narrow, her hands already glowing with magical energy. With a grim resolve, Cariel gives the final order to attack. He leaps over Reina's spell, a perfectly coordinated pincer movement. The villain is caught off guard by their sudden unified assault, but he simply raises a hand, ready to catch the incoming spell. He crushes the magic in his grip, neutralizing it completely. So much for the opening move. His arm transforms further, becoming a massive, monstrous head. The creature lunges, its jaws open wide to devour our boy. But Cariel charges forward, ready to meet the beast head-on. The villain's monstrous arm lunges forward with a guttural roar. Its flesh suddenly hardens, because of course it has spikes now. Cariel's eyes widen, realizing the monster is adapting mid-fight. He brings the hero's blade down with all his might. Reina unleashes another blast of pure magical energy. She focuses her will, compressing the spell for maximum impact. The attack slams into the ground, a desperate attempt to slow him down. But she realizes with a jolt that her magic is having almost no effect. The villain stands completely unfazed by their combined assault. And Cariel is forced to accept a grim, simple truth. They are completely outmatched. The villain mocks Cariel's resilience, threatening to finally get serious. Reina realizes her basic spells are useless. They need a bigger magical hammer. She asks about their backup, but Cariel fears the monster has already dealt with them. Elsewhere, a group of armored soldiers patrol a strangely altered forest. They find themselves surrounded by massive, unnatural walls of flesh. Back in the fight, Reina unleashes a more powerful, concentrated spell. The blast of fire engulfs the villain in a brilliant explosion, but his monstrous arm emerges from the flames completely unscathed. So much for a bigger hammer. The creature's full form appears through the smoke, more menacing than before. Reina is stunned, realizing even her stronger magic did absolutely nothing. But Cariel's eyes lock onto a new detail, a sudden realization. The monster is covered in camellia flowers, a plant known for its fire resistance. He calls out to Reina, a new, desperate plan already forming. He tells her to use her strongest fire spell, just one massive blast. She worries about the casting time, but he clenches his fist, determined. He grips his sword, promising to buy her all the time she needs. The villain seems impressed by their tenacity, a rare compliment, but his admiration is short-lived. He's officially done playing games. His monstrous arm lashes out, a blur of dark, destructive energy. Cariel is caught in the whirlwind, bracing for the inevitable impact. Cariel is sent reeling, the force of the blow staggering him. The impact is brutal, a testament to the monster's raw power. He grits his teeth, refusing to fall under the immense pressure. His only thought is to hold on until Reyna's spell is ready. But the villain smirks, having already figured out their desperate plan. He unleashes a counterattack, a wave of dark energy aimed at Reyna. A mass of shadowy tendrils hurtles towards the young mage. She's caught in its grip, her spell completely interrupted. So much for buying time. Cariel's eyes narrow, his focus shifting to his trapped friend. He tightens his grip on the hero's blade, ready to intervene. With no other choice, Cariel throws himself in front of the attack. He grits his teeth, trying to hold on just a little longer. But the villain's power slams down, crushing him completely. Cariel's eyes widen as he realizes something is terribly wrong. A brilliant flash of light erupts from his body. A raw, inhuman scream is torn from his throat. The villain mocks him, asking if he's enjoying his new role as a punching bag. But Cariel promises this is nothing compared to what's coming next. The villain turns, confused by a sudden change in the air, because the hero's blade in Cariel's hand is now glowing with holy power. A blinding explosion of holy energy erupts from the blade. The villain panics, realizing he has to stop this power surge. He's thrown back, his own dark power useless against the blast. Cariel screams, overwhelmed by the raw power he's unleashed. The entire area is consumed by a catastrophic detonation. All of this power is coming from the hero's sword in his hand. The light is so intense it threatens to burn away the darkness. When the light fades, the villain is left standing in a void. So much for his grand plan. He awakens, bandaged and confused, in an unfamiliar place. He finds himself in a dark room, calling out a mysterious name. He sits alone in the darkness, his hand on a simple case. His mind drifts back, the familiar chair stirring old memories. He remembers coming here with his family to watch the shows. Even in the dark, he could always find his sister by her song. Her voice was a beacon, a thread of light in the darkness. He recalls her captivating beauty and her enchanting voice. His sister received all the praise, compliments he never heard. As a child, he could only watch her from the crowd in awe. He explains his family was simple. His parents and his twin sister, they were poor, but her talent changed everything, moving them to the city. His quiet school life was shattered by his sister's growing fame. To him, she was just a kid, captivated by tales of heroes. He recalls overhearing his parents discussing a huge opportunity. The family's future now rested on one child's performance. No pressure. He watched from the doorway, still in awe of his sister's talent. And as she received all the praise, he felt himself shrinking. He feared that if she shone too brightly, he wouldn't matter at all. One day, he finds a set of clothes he's never seen before. He wonders why these nice clothes were hidden away. He realizes it might be a surprise gift for his upcoming birthday. But his mother finds him, furious he dare wear his sister's clothes. Her anger is a storm, a raw and terrifying force. He can only apologize, his words swallowed by the suffocating silence. He's never seen her so angry, a memory that chills him to the bone. He decides to find his sister, certain her kindness will smooth things over. But she's already heard the news, her tone surprisingly calm. She reassures him it's fine, blaming their mother's recent stress. He tries to make it up to her, suggesting a play about heroes. But she scoffs at the idea, dismissing it as childish. Her words hit hard, and he decides he's done with the heroes from his stories. His father's voice cuts through the memory, asking what he's doing. He remembers thinking his dad was braver than any warrior. He recalls running into his father's arms, a man who loved both his children. His father offers to tell him a story just like old times. He speaks of strange creatures that have been attacking the villages, a memory of a real monster, its foot crushing their entire world. The story ends, and the boy is left coughing in the rubble. This is not a fairy tale. He looks down, realizing with horror he can't feel his legs. His eye widens in terror as he calls out for his father. A silhouette appears in the doorway, a beacon in the destruction. He calls out again, his voice weak but filled with hope. But his father's face is a mask of shadow, his voice distant. For a moment, the boy believes he's been seen, that he's safe. But the hand that reaches out isn't for him. He asks for his daughter, his words a crushing blow. The boy's hope shatters into a million pieces. He can't comprehend what he's just heard. And then another voice cuts through the dust. His father turns away, drawn by his sister's call. So much for family first. The boy can only scream, his world collapsing into darkness. He can only whisper his father's name, his mind refusing to accept it. His hand reaches out from the rubble, a desperate plea for rescue. He tries to fight the dark thoughts creeping into his mind. He bargains with a god he doesn't believe in, begging his father to return. He reaches for the empty doorway, the last place he saw his hero. A single broken plea escapes his lips. Don't go. His eyes squeeze shut, as if to block out the crushing reality. But the truth is undeniable. He's been left behind. Guess he wasn't the favorite child after all. The world around him is a blur of dust and collapsing stone. His pleas for a hero are met with nothing but suffocating silence. He questions why his father chose his sister over him. He lies broken in the rubble, unable to find an answer. His world spirals into a vortex of confusion and despair. He reaches out, but there's no one there to take his hand. The memory fades, leaving only the sound of destruction. Back in the present, the villain is dazed from the holy blast. His vision is blurred, the world a disorienting haze. Through the smoke, a shadowy figure begins to approach. His eyes widen as he finally recognizes his unexpected visitor.